1. Need advice on a tough living situation with my roommate. I'm in a tricky living situation, and I need some advice on how to handle it. I'll give you a timeline of events to make things clearer. 2 months ago, the move-in. I'm a pretty chill and non-confrontational person, and I really value creating a comfortable environment for myself and others. I had been looking for an apartment for a long time, and had worked really hard to find a place that was perfect for me. It had 2 great rooms, and I got the master bedroom since it was slightly bigger. I was excited. Finally, my own space. I showed the apartment to my now roommate, and she took photos, videos, and even FaceTimed her friends from there. Shortly after moving in, she had decided her room was too small to accommodate her desk, so she moved her entire work setup into the living room. This wasn't something we had agreed on, but I tried to overlook it. Since we both work from home most days, I thought, alright, I'll make it work. But soon enough, this change started to have an impact on me. I found myself barely leaving my room, and while I know it's partly my issue, it made me feel really isolated. It's tough to focus and get work done when the living room starts to feel like her personal space too. From the beginning, it was clear that we have very different energies. I'm someone who tends to adjust and let things slide, while it feels like every conversation I've had with her has been a complaint. She's complained about everything from the kitchen being too small, I got extra storage to resolve this, to not liking my coat rack, which I ended up removing. What? I will not tolerate coat rack snobbery. Don't like it? Hang your coat on the floor. And even the paint on the walls. And she doesn't like her bathroom and feels it's unfair that mine is bigger. It's not the size that counts, as how you poop in it. Literally every conversation has been about something she doesn't like. She even complained that the gym in the building was too crowded. Ignoring the fact that it has a gym? Honestly, it's all pretty exhausting. And I just want to chill and enjoy life, and dance around the living room while cooking dinner without feeling like I'm walking on eggshells. The slow shift, feeling crowded in my own apartment. As time went on, it felt like the living room was becoming more her space than shared space. Her desk wasn't the only thing. I felt like my sense of space in the apartment was slipping away. I had worked so hard to find this place, and now it felt like she was taking it over. Multiple conversations, a refusal to change. I tried to talk to her about it. After several conversations where I expressed how uncomfortable the desk situation made me feel, she was adamant, "I'm not moving it." Plus some very weird behavior surrounding paying the right rent on time. The big decision, giving up the master bedroom. Ow! Eventually it became clear this situation wasn't going to change, and it was really starting to affect me in every way. I eat dinner in my room and barely step out so not to run into her. Her constant complaints and dominant energy were making me feel sad, drained, and low. We barely spoke, except for quick hellos and goodbyes. Everything felt off. After more talks and feeling like I couldn't handle it any longer, I agreed to give up the master bedroom. That's what she wanted the whole time. I had no intention of giving it up, especially since I had bought new furniture specifically for that room, but it felt like I had no other choice. She didn't want to compromise, so I told her I'd take the smaller room instead, just to keep the peace and let her have the bigger space for her desk. The final straw, feeling even more unsettled. Today I came home to find that she had moved all my books and placed them near the front door. It felt like a constant disregard for my things and my space. The bottom line, I'm unhappy and I need advice. I'm genuinely struggling with this whole situation. I need to figure out how to improve things for myself. I don't want to keep feeling this way, but I don't know how to navigate the situation without creating more conflict. That's how you navigate it. It's not going to get better unless you create conflict first. I'm looking for advice on how to handle this better and protect my mental well-being while keeping the peace. Thanks in advance for any thoughts or suggestions. Yeah, you're not going to keep the peace, so you need forget it. Forget it. Get rid of that notion. There's no way you're going to resolve this while keeping the peace. She knows with absolute certainty that she can walk all over you and get whatever she wants. She needs to go. Whatever you need to do to legally get her out of that place, get her out. Take back your space. Take back your room. Now, you're both on the lease from what I'm seeing in the comments. That means you both have an equal right to use the space. However, as you had already taken the master bedroom, because you found the place, as is your right, she agreed to move into the smaller room. Take your room back. Don't ask her, take it. Let this bitch know that living with you isn't going to be the walk at the beach she thinks it's going to be. And if she thinks she's going to move back into the living room to work, You work in your bedroom, she can work in hers. Her desk is too big? Well, let me think. Get a smaller desk. That's her solution. You shouldn't be bending over backwards here to make things easier on her. She's shown no regard for you. Why are you showing regard for her? She hasn't earned it. She doesn't deserve it. You deserve to be able to feel free and at peace in your own home. Things have to change, but they will not change unless you make them. As I said, use whatever legal means you have. Do it within the law. And you'll be glad you did going forward. And if you're in the habit of saying sorry to her, stop that right now. 2. I and my flatmate are both 20 and both female. We attend the same college and the same course, and have been having conflict of lately, and I don't want to start an argument or a fight. In this shared accommodation, there are 4 of us in total, with my boyfriend spending a lot of time sleeping over here too. My flatmate that I have been having trouble with is childhood friends with the other couple living here. For some context, we originally were sharing a room and I had to move out into a spare single room because I simply couldn't live with her mess anymore. Our room is tiny, so much so that we had to share a bedside locker and wardrobe. About 1 month into us sharing the room, she began to be very lazy when it came time to clearing up, not making her bed, sweeping the floor, wiping down bedside locker, leaving her clothes in a heap, leaving dirty dishes in the room, and more. It all came to a head when we held a pre-drinks, and she left for the weekend to go back home without telling me, and leaving me with all the cleanup. I cleaned up the mess from the prinks in the kitchen and hall. There were glasses and rubbish everywhere. And I also cleaned our room because it looked like a pigsty. I moved her makeup and vanity mirror off our shared bedside locker because it was taking up the entire thing, and was also covered in a sticky substance, presumably a spilled drink, which I wanted to clean up. I put the makeup and mirror back on the exact shelf where she always kept them on, but she still had an issue with it when she came back on Monday. We got into a massive fight about it all, which resulted in me staying between my grandma's house, my sister's and my family home 2 hours from college for the next 3 weeks. I genuinely just couldn't be in the flat because it was causing me so much anxiety. This is all in the lead up to Christmas exams too. During these 3 weeks, she was being completely unreasonable, demanding that I come back to the flat and moved my stuff out of the room into the spare single room we had in the flat. If I were to move into this room, it would mean I would have to pay increased rent, so I had to take time to consider whether this was within my budget. Eventually, after discussing it with my parents, we decided the only solution was me moving into that room. In the aftermath of the fight and moving into the other room, I found it difficult to go into the communal areas, as the rest of my flatmates would always be there. I found it awkward because I knew they would talk about me and take her side in the argument. For the 2 months since moving into my own room, things have gradually become less awkward and I can finally go into my own kitchen and small talk without feeling anxious. Yet she has been messy and plain disgusting in the communal areas, not cleaning her dishes and so on. Yet it has been bearable until today. I went into our shared bathroom this morning after we had a shower, and my loofah was in the drain covered in cleaning products, presuming she had used it to clean the bath. On top of that, my razor was left on the side of the bath covered in her hair, of which I took photos. I really don't know what to do because I don't want to stir up more conflict in the chat, just when I'm finally feeling comfortable again. I am also scared that if I were to stand up for myself, that she would twist it and make it seem as if I'm in the wrong, and talk to people in my course about it. Affecting me outside of the flat, I wish that me confronting her would just be between us, but I know that will not be the case. She will plain and simply chat crap about me. Elf Reader's note, well, as far as I see it, these are your options. You can either just ignore the situation, you can tell her you used my stuff, please pay for it, or just get a little bag for your cleaning stuff, your loofah and all that, and keep it in your room. You guys have just not clicked, you're never going to be friends, you're clearly not compatible to be living together. Get out of that situation as soon as you're able, obviously. But if the big conflict here right now, she's using your stuff without permission, just make sure she doesn't have access to your stuff. It's really that simple. 3. We're 4 graduate students, late 20s, living in a 4-bed, 1-bath house. At the beginning of the lease, one of my roommates, R, asked if her boyfriend, C, could stay over for a little while. It sounded casual, and we all said yes. Well, he never left. At first, it wasn't a huge deal. C was still paying rent elsewhere and pitched in for groceries and utilities, so we let it be. But one day he lost his job, and a few months later, he moved out of his rented place and into ours, without informing anyone. And he doesn't actually live there. One day, he was just suddenly living with us full-time. We're only 4 people on the lease, and now we had a 5th unofficial roommate who isn't paying rent. So, before rent was due 1 month, I gently brought it up and said, since he's not paying rent elsewhere anymore, could he contribute something to our rent? Instead of talking to me about it, R ghosted me. Later, when another roommate brought it up, R became defensive and emotional by saying I was being condescending for mentioning this and that he was going through a hard time. We should help him. We're not even friends if you can't support my boyfriend. Note, none of us have jobs because we're all students, and yet you pay your bills. She eventually said they'd pay extra starting the next month, and that there should not be any more discussion about it. Surprise, they didn't pay anything extra. Shocker. Some more context. R and another roommate, M, are close and their partners are good friends too. They all used to hang out often before we moved in together. Our 4th housemate supports me on this, but now both of us have been completely iced out. They avoid us, ignore us, and act like we don't exist. It feels like we're the outsiders in our own house. I've also learned that R has been bad-mouthing me in our wider social circles, painting me as heartless for even bringing this up. What a bloody freeloader. So, not only am I iced out at home, but now I'm also being dragged behind my back in public. I approached this as respectfully as possible, and now I'm being treated like the villain just for asking for basic accountability in a shared living situation. I feel stuck, disrespected, and completely isolated in the space I pay for. Any advice on how to handle this would be really appreciated. Our landlord is a very chill guy who essentially doesn't care as long as he gets the agreed-upon rent. He doesn't want to be included and suggests to sort this out amongst ourselves. The lease does not have any restricting clauses for visitors or guests. Your landlord is a little bit too chill. Okay, here's what you do. If your landlord's such a chill guy, simply tell him, look, a 4-bedroom house is 4 people living there. It's a little too crowded right now, so the 4 people that can pay the rent are already there. You need to look for a new place. Find a new place and tell your landlord, hey, man, is it okay if will you let me out of my lease? And since he's such a cool guy, maybe he will. Then you get out of Dodge. You go somewhere else and you don't think about these crap heads ever again. Unless the roommate you're friends with also wants to leave and maybe you could get a place together. I think someone in the Reddit comments suggested that, which is a pretty good idea, actually, depending on how close you are. You shouldn't have to leave your place, but you are outnumbered, and there's no way you're going to get all of them out. 4. This happened over the course of the fall and spring semesters in 2023 and 2024. I was going to college in northern Indiana, and had chosen a dorm with 5 of my friends, a 6-person room, due to some outside factors. 2 of my chosen roommates did not return that fall semester. This leads us to our random roommate. The dorm had 3 bedrooms, and we had 5 people assigned to the dorm. Me, 21, and Perez, 22, shared one room. Althea, 19, and Lenore, 19, share another. And our new roommate, Celine, 19, had their own. We shared a bathroom with 1 toilet, 1 shower, and 2 sinks. There was also a common space sectioned into a living room and dining space. Now, we'd heard rumors of Celine being a dirty person, but she had actually told us that she had a contamination OCD the first week of living with us, and that she would likely clean often. So we assumed it was a different Celine on campus that was dirty, and we didn't have any problems yet. About a month or so in, we came back one night and see Celine in the dining area. She never really left her room, so this was notable to us. But more noticeable was that she was cleaning dishes with a Clorox wipe, and not just her own. She said she had done all of my dishes for me to be helpful. If not obvious, this is not cleaning the dishes in a safe way, as the chemical residue can be harmful. I just thanked her and washed my dishes again when she left the room next, because I hate confrontation. She would also just steal period products from the shelf, so much so that Perez and I started hiding ours in our room. This was the start of her grossness. Like, it escalated so fast it's crazy. By December, it was common for me, Perez, Althea, and Lenore to have to text a vague, "Hey, if it's your period blood on the seat, you need to clean it up," while we all knew it was Celine. If you care how we knew, it's 'cause the four of us were close enough to know that none of us were also on our periods for these incidents. Either way, it is a common courtesy to make sure the toilet is clean after you use it. She would also leave used pads in the trash can unwrapped, and we initially had an open can in our bathroom. After multiple complaints from us asking Celine to wrap her used pads, she had decided to put their lidded trash can in the bathroom, instead of wrapping her pads. This was annoying, but at least the stench of her used pads was contained to the can now. To top all of this off, she denied it every time, saying something like, "It wasn't me, but I'll clean it." Then she started dating Massette, 22. He was a member of the fraternity I was close to. My current fiancé is a brother of the frat. And he was nice enough, but not when he started living in my dorm. Celine had him stay over without consulting us, and he was even nastier than her. I am saying without any exaggeration that there was a day where Celine and Massette took a shower together while I was in the living room. It lasted over an hour, and they finally left. I went to pee afterwards, and the whole bathroom smelled like B.O. No soap smell, just B.O. It was an almost gag-worthy stench, too. Now the worst of it, and more definitely happened, but it's all overshadowed by this event. It's important to note that Celine had a whack sleep schedule and was up all the time. It was, however, not a problem for us since she stayed in her room usually. But one day I woke up and went into the bathroom and sat down to do my business. I look at the lidded trash can that is directly in front of me and see a used pad sitting on the lid. No joke, a used pad in a very disgusting state was just basking on top. I finish my business, wash my hands, and immediately text my group chat with the others. I'm running late for class though, so I let Lenore message in the roommates chat to ask Celine to clean up the pad. Celine denies it, but she still cleaned it up willingly. Now I want you to remember that within the first week of living with us, she said she had contamination OCD. Someone with this will not likely be willing to clean up bodily fluids of others, especially if it's as severe as claimed. Sadly, we just dealt with her stinky pooper and her smelly boyfriend for the year, and just made sure we didn't live near her ever again. 5. So, I was leaving one bad roommate situation just to get into a way worse one that almost ended my life. Here goes. 3 years ago, I moved in with a girl whose mother owned the house and was the landlord. She seemed nice at first, but this would be very short-lived, and within 5 days she would try to kill me. We talked every day, as I'm on disability and she just doesn't want to work. Day one we spent hanging out, and I even bought us pizza and wings for dinner. We talked all night, and really got to know her. She opened up to me immediately, as most people do, and she shared her life story, including that she is an undiagnosed schizophrenic, which of course made me a little worried. told me about her parents, their divorce, her upbringing, how she got into drugs, and we kind of bonded over that as I'm a recovered drug addict myself, how she doesn't really like her mother, etc. And then she told me something disturbing, which was the second red flag after being an undiagnosed schizophrenic. But she told me that when she was in her teens, and mind you, she was only in her 20s, her mom asked her to burn down their house so that they could collect the insurance. She told me that she did it and was excited doing it until afterwards, when she realized that she lost all her stuff. And yes, her mom did get away with all of this and collected the insurance money. So after a long day and night getting to know this girl, I called it a night. I went to bed, thinking already that this was not going to end well, but I would never expect it to end as bad as it did. The next day, when I got up, this girl wasn't home, and she didn't come back until the following day, and she had a guy with her who she was messing around with. I didn't hang out with them. I just stayed in my room that night because they were using meth, which is the worst drug for schizophrenic people to be on, as it can make you hallucinate and become paranoid. So that was red flag number 3. Like I said, I just stayed in my bedroom and ignored them. The next day came, and I have a question for her, so in the afternoon I had gone and knocked on her door, and she wasn't home. So I had a peaceful, quiet day, and when I heard the front door open, I had planned to let her come in and get settled, and then I'd go and talk to her about what I needed to talk to her about. I waited about half an hour, and I went and knocked on her bedroom door, and no one answered, even though the music was on, which it wasn't earlier when I had knocked, so I knew that she was in there, and then I heard her dog in there whining. I figured she probably left again and just forgot to turn off the music. I had let her dog out when she wasn't home the second night, so I figured she'd want me to bring him out since he was whining. Here's where it all starts to get bad, and only get worse and worse. The door was locked, which meant that she wasn't in there, but she wasn't answering and the dog was whining. I didn't know what was going on, so I just went back to my bedroom. A few hours later, I was standing in the kitchen where the entrance was, still thinking the whole situation was weird, and her and 2 guys walk in the door. I was very confused, but said, "Hello," and spent a few minutes talking to them. So then I went to my bedroom because, as I said before, she had been doing drugs with one of the guys. After the guys left, she knocked on my door, and as we were talking, I asked her what was up with her dog being locked and having the music on, and she said that she doesn't know what I'm talking about, and that her door wasn't locked and that she wasn't home. She said she hasn't been for 2 days. I told her that earlier I knocked on her door because I heard someone come in through the front door and heard her music on. I also told her that her dog was whining as well, and this is where it gets really bad. We then realized that it was the guy that she'd been hooking up with who came in, because he had actually left her somewhere during that time. It's terrifying with just thinking what that guy was capable of, and the fact that I didn't know he was there. She then started talking about killing people, and it didn't help that she was high, and had been high for days as well as being a paranoid schizophrenic. I have a lot of trauma, and as a trauma response, I'm luckily very good in bad situations. So then she tells me that she had thought about killing her last roommate. I knew to stay calm. She then asks me if I knew her 2 guy friends, and I told her no and reminded her that I just moved in 1.5 hours away from everyone I knew. She started pacing and going back and forth from her bedroom to mine, and suddenly she comes in with a huge hunting knife. She was playing with it, and she told me that she didn't believe me, and that I had 5 minutes to get the guy that she had been hooking up with there. She didn't have a phone of her own. I told her calmly that I really didn't know him, but I would contact him if she gave me his Facebook profile. She then accused me of putting cameras in the house to watch her, because I knew her 2 guy friends and I was setting her up with them so that they could come in the middle of the night and torture and kill her. I tried to assure her all of that wasn't true and reminded her that I was new to that area. She said that I also planted a book in her room that was about torture so that she would know what they were going to do to her, and she lunged at me with the knife. Luckily, I was standing right next to my nightstand that had my mace on top of it, and I grabbed it just in time to stop her. She stopped and laughed and told me to go ahead and mace her, that it wouldn't stop her from killing me. but she backed off, and when she left my bedroom, I locked my door. She continued to pace from her bedroom to mine, and she kept telling me that I had 5 minutes to get that guy there. I kept trying to reassure her that what she thought all wasn't true. But she just got angrier and angrier. She told me if I called the police, she would kick in the door and kill me before they even got to the house. I then smelled gas, and she was dousing the entire house. After she got done doing that, she told me that I had 5 minutes to get her that guy there, or she was setting the house on fire with me in it. I moved my bed away from the window to jump out the window, but she heard me move the bed and told me if I jumped out the window she would hear me, and she would be right there to kill me. I told her that she would be hurting her mom if she lit the house on fire, and she said no, she wouldn't because she's not the one who did it, and that she was going to blame it on the only other person in the house, which was me. Then all of a sudden, all the smoke detectors in the house were going off because they were all synced with each other. I had to make the decision about which way I wanted to die because I truly believed that I was about to die. I chose to stay in the house and hoped that I would die from the smoke inhalation. I then decided enough was enough, and if I was going to die, her mother needed to know what a psychopath her daughter was, and I decided to text her and tell her that her daughter was truly insane and that she was setting the house on fire. I went through 5 agonizing minutes of praying and wondering why I was smelling smoke, and all of a sudden I hear a man's voice saying my name from the other side of the door. I asked who it was, and it was the police. Thankfully, her mom had called them, and the only reason she didn't kick in the door and kill me was because she was outside smoking when they showed up. I finally broke down crying because I was finally safe. This situation had lasted a few hours, and I don't know how I stayed so calm thinking that I was going to die. The police took my statement and took her to the psych ward. I had the police come to the house a few days later to give me a paper stating that when she got out of the psych ward, she was not able to buy any guns. I moved back to the town I was living in before all this happened, 2 weeks later. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Bad Roommates, episode 64. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do that by signing up for my Patreon page, which is linked in the description, as is a link to my merchandise store on Teespring. You can also leave a tip for this or any other video by clicking on the heart with a $sign underneath the video player. And while none of that is ever required, it is very much appreciated and really does help. Okay. We have no other bits and bobs today, so let's move along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, what is a simple, almost no effort, but very yummy dish you like to make for yourself? For me, it's pretty simple. I get a bag of baby potatoes, drizzle some olive oil into the air fryer. Obviously, I rinse the potatoes off first, and then I cook them, and I might even sprinkle a little garlic on top of them for extra yumminess. And that's it. That's all they need because it is very, very yummy. So what I'm doing right now, minus the olive oil because I don't have any, I'm using sunflower oil as a substitute, but they'll still be yummy. Let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, let's take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And this one actually comes from Revenge's Ice Cream 267, and it was name a movie title that changes dramatically when you add or remove one letter. And today's answer comes from, well, I'll say today's, this was quite a while back, comes from Deeper Things. The film, which features 2 hours of Tom Cruise running to get a film to the editors on time. And oh, you just know he would run so impressively. Man, that man runs. Almost like he's running from something. Maybe Thetans. And with that, I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.